Hello and welcome to Head Above the Clouds podcast with me, Alice G.
And me, Jade Poltney. We're here to have open and honest conversations about mental illness and hopefully give some advice about how to keep your head above the clouds. Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of Head Above the Clouds. I hope you've all had a lovely week, the last week of lockdown too. We have been super busy at HATC HQ, making something very exciting for you all. So stay tuned till the end of this episode to hear all about that. Or, go over to our Instagram page if you're impatient, I suppose. This week, we are joined by East London-based artist Jones, aka Cherie Jones-Mattis. Her latest release, Camera Flash, came out in August with more new tunes on the way. We got to speak all about how she hacked her way into the music industry, her lifelong experience with mental illness, and some cool new anxiety relief techniques that she learned over lockdown. So let's just get into it.
I am ready when you are.
Perfect. Yeah, so we'll start with how have you been over the last few months in lockdown, really?
Yes, well, I won't lie, it's been a roller coaster. It's been up and down. I think the beginning for me was really strange, and probably for a lot of people, just having your freedom and your liberty kind of taken away from you. And then a lot of parts of your livelihood, like for example, a lot of my life is spent in the studio working with other people, and that was gone. So then as a human, I've felt quite useless over this period. And then obviously releasing music but not being able to play shows, so you're just kind of throwing this like stuff into the digital world, but you're not really getting any tangible feedback. So it's been strange, but then in a way it's been really nice for my creativity, because I've just had a lot of time on my hands to explore that a bit deeper and maybe spend more time there rather than always moving on to the next thing, next song, next studio session. So it's been a real mixed bag. It hasn't been every day is kind of different as well.
Yeah. I think as well, I know from conversations we've had with artists, is a lot of this is their identity they felt was lost. And your life is about, touring and you say working, even like when you're off stage, you're still working, collaborating with, producers, other artists, and that's your day-to-day like identity. Exactly. And it was like gone overnight.
Gone, and no, not like, okay, you're going away traveling for a bit, I'm going to come back and resume my routines. Kind of gone indefinitely. And I mean, that's interesting that you bring up identity, because I definitely relate with that as well. Because being an artist, I love, part of why I do it is because I really want to be a positive force in the world. Like one of my biggest musical idols is like Bob Marley, and I always aspire to his lyrics, and I always try and bring that into what I'm saying. But when you're not able to do that, it kind of, you question, why am I doing this? Is it kind of like a selfish pursuit? Is it really giving something back? It's just totally confusing.
Yeah. I think also as well, there's that time, I think a lot of musicians feel like there's a time frame with producing things in the journey, and they get to a point where obviously the industry is not the easiest of industries at all. It's quite cutthroat. So you get to a point where you think, relating to what you just said there, that you think, is this it? Is this enough time? And I think COVID for a lot of people brought that period of time where they think, is now the time to do something else or to give up on it. So I don't know whether you felt, in COVID that, as our government are pushing at the moment to retrain.
There's horrendous posters of like the ballerina, like her next job might be in tech or whatever it said. I posted a hilarious meme of Boris Johnson in like a ridiculous, I think he'd done a bungee jump or something, and he was in a suit, but he was wearing this ridiculous harness. And
was that the zip wire one?
Yeah, the zip wire, and it said like Boris's like next job might be as a piñata or something, just to be like right back at you, like.
It was so insulting.
Yeah.
Hugely insulting.
I know. And they're all kind of protected in their jobs.
Yeah.
They're just so detached from what other people are going through. But yeah, I've definitely questioned what I'm doing, where I'm going, what I want to do. why do I do what I do? You know, is there a sustainable future in it? So definitely had all these questions. But thankfully, you know, streaming is you know, keeping us going for a lot of us. I know for a lot of musician friends, all of the work has evaporated overnight, so that's tough. I'm actually just in the middle of planning some live streams, but they've been cut as well because not technically allowed to kind of rehearse and be in the same room because of the tier 2 rules and stuff like that. So it's just like, oh my God, just when we thought that we're going to get some stuff, but we'll find a way. We might just have to do it like a Zoom. I don't know. We'll have to get creative.
Yeah.
It's complicated because, I mean, I think the rules, as much as they think they're a clear cut image, they're not, you know. And I know there's the rules for like a workplace, but it's whether they dictate like what's work. Exactly.
It's such a grey area. I mean, I'm kind of checking the guidelines every day, and really I'm finding that, you know, different like newspapers and outlet sources are saying different things, so it's super confusing. Super confusing.
Because I mean, working in a studio recording a live stream is work. In this industry, that is a job. People, you know, that brings in revenue, and it's whether they decide that's work or not, because it's not sat behind a desk
in a company. I guess it's we just have to do what we do and hope that everything will be okay.
Hopefully. I mean,
fingers crossed.
Touch wood.
2021 isn't as much as a writer.
Well, yeah, let's hope it can't get too worse. So you grew up with your mum, was it in London?
Yes.
Was, I guess, music for you, was that always something that you'd been into and from an early age?
Very much, very much. I remember having 2 ambitions in life. One was to be a singer and one was to be a mermaid. So so I'm still working on the mermaid one, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, music was a huge part of this is falling off, of my mum's life as well. And I always say that music was like pumped into the womb, and it was definitely a thing that she used to get through hard times. Like she definitely, I experienced her going through some like quite heavy depression, like, on and off throughout my whole life. So the music would get louder when the times were harder, I always say. And I think I absorbed that, and it, you know, it's therapy to me. It's like it lifts my spirits. It brings, you know, helps me connect with people and myself, work through things that are going on in my brain that I don't know are even happening. And so it's always been there.
I love that. I think music is a therapy in itself.
Definitely.
You know, music therapy I've experienced is hugely helpful. And I love the fact that the music gets louder. I'm like that when my bipolar's off or something. My parents can always tell, not only by the way I speak to them, but like how I behave, and if they can hear, like if I'm home booming music, they're like, okay. Or if I'm stressed, or even by like the song. I don't know if you find that, but there's like a certain maybe genre or playlist that gets played when you're in one certain mood, and then another in another one.
Definitely.
But no, I love that. Obviously, then you experienced mental health from a young, would you say young age?
Very young.
Very young.
Yeah, I've always been aware of like dark clouds, both for my mum and myself. And I think as a child, I mean, I'm learning so much interesting stuff about how we inherit things from our ancestors, and it's literally in our DNA. And I found that quite empowering, because sometimes I wondered, why do I feel this way? And now I understand, well, if you're in a certain environment, that's going to affect you. If you learn certain behaviors from your elders, your parents, that's going to affect you. And then learning about my family history as well, there's a lot of trauma in that as well. So no wonder, you know, but I think something really beautiful and empowering is that we can change it. And I've been reading a lot about how thoughts can literally reprogram your DNA. So, you know, things like affirmation, doing some exercise, you know, doing something that makes you happy does have an effect on these things that we carry with us. So,
I think a lot of it's to do with being predisposed to it. And I think I agree when it comes to DNA. I believe that it's documented there is a factor, but there's also a factor in everything from sleep to, as you say, like behavioural that you pick up from your environment. And I think also a lot of creatives find they're predisposed to mental health, not only because of the work they're in and the schedules and the jobs and the hours, But creativity, there is that link.
Definitely.
Um,
It's very common, isn't it?
yeah,
Very, very common.
it is.
Yeah.
But I also think, I guess, creativity also has its place in helping, as much as it maybe makes you predisposed. I think
Blessing and a curse,
it.
they say.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
No, I agree.
I think you have to have quite a sensitivity in a if you're creating a visual art or like a sonic art or other types of creativity to be able to pick up on those subtle connections and like put your own spin in it. It kind of leans itself to the more sensitive person. So of course sensitive people can be a bit
Yeah.
more susceptible to these things.
How did it affect then? So your mum was a single parent.
Yes.
How did that then feed in to growing up in that in that environment where it's already hard? It can be hard work.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I won't lie. It was definitely very difficult, and I think I've always been quite empathetic as well. So I always kind of felt quite responsible for the sadness that my mum was going through, and always wanted to lift her up. And don't get me wrong, she wasn't down all the time, but
No.
when she was, she was. And I think that's definitely kind of affected me as a person. But it definitely makes me, more sympathetic and aware of other things I see now, like in my friends, because I've been through it.
Yeah.
But it was definitely a huge factor on both of our lives.
And is it fed in? You've mentioned that you have like anxieties sometimes with performing. And was it stage fright? In a way, I guess when you're you witness this and you experience that, it gives you a bit more over time experience with dealing with mental health. Has that been something when it comes to performing that has maybe helped having that experience, or actually has it done the opposite, do you think?
That's interesting. I don't know. I've always been fiercely stubborn as well. So even when I felt sick, like when I was younger before going on stage and things like that, I was just like, I'm going to do this. I don't care what I have to do to get through it. Like my mum says, my first phrase was like, I can do it. So that's been like my little motto throughout life. So like whatever it throws at me, I'm just like, okay, I'm going to get through this one way or another. I saw like my stage anxieties, like I almost kind of saw it as a thing, like a monster. It's like, you are an obstacle to what I want to do. I'm not going to let you dominate my life. So I just did things to kind of get myself out of my comfort zone, get myself more familiar with the environment, do it over and over again until my brain learned that, I can do this and it's not so scary. I mean, I think it's natural, like any performer, you always get a bit of, nerves before, but nothing like it used to be. So I'm quite proud of that.
It's a good affirmation. I think that, as you said earlier, having affirmations is I think people underestimate the power of the word, if I put it that way.
Yeah, they're hugely powerful.
It does make a huge difference. So you were part of Brady Arts Centre.
Yes.
Which is funded by the Arts Council. And was it a school programme?
No, I started there, I think I was about 14 or 15, and it was completely separate from school. I didn't really enjoy secondary school, and I really needed to be part of something else socially as well. So I joined it. I think I used to go on like evenings and maybe some weekends, and I found a really beautiful group of people, and the staff there were amazing, and I had my first singing lessons there and learned how to produce music and do performances. And yeah, it was such a huge part of my life, to be honest, looking back.
How important do you think having those community sort of funded institutions, would you call them, are for young people, especially in working class areas, to open them up to that industry, especially now with austerity anyway, but the new cuts that COVID's had coming into these sort of programs? How was that being in that community sort of led space? Was it like seeing other kids come in as well and creating a group environment?
Yeah, I mean, all of these things, it was pivotal for me. And I think for a lot of the other children there as well. When you're coming from a sort of impoverished background and you don't have access to certain resources, going somewhere where you can do the thing you love and then, get that feedback of feeling good about yourself is so important as a child, because I definitely didn't feel like that in school. I had a hard time in school, not like academically, but with the other people. So I didn't really identify with them. So it was so important for me as a young teenager to find people that I could relate to. And this was pre the height of social media, so you couldn't just go and like log into a community back then. So it's so important. So it's really tragic that people are losing these opportunities, because kids need positive creative outlet. They need to feel good about themselves. They need to feel proud. They need to relate to people. And they need to develop that side of themselves. If they're not going to get it from home and they're not going to get it from school, it's they're desperately needed. Yeah, especially now.
Definitely something I recognise growing up in the Northwest, in a very, very, I always joke people like, oh, I grew up in the town that Billy Elliot was set in. Essentially, it's that very sort of similar environment of like, no, everyone in here does this thing. We all work in these places. You want to go and do art or music or drama, that's not what anyone here does. And you sort of get it from home, and then the school environment is very much charged at, no, you're going to get your 5 C's and you're going to leave and you're going to get a job and do what everybody else does. So I had a drama school called Action Transport, where we would go and we'd learn how to write plays and learn how to stage direct and stage manage and make sets. It's really, getting these young working class kids into this industry to sort of diversify it as well. Because when you then go in, like I have, moving to London and trying to get my foot in the door here, and you realise, oh, all these people went to Sylvia Young or they went to the Brit School, and they've all had these opportunities from birth, and no one's ever discouraged them from going into it. They've never had someone go, oh no, that's not for you.
I think a lot of it's to do with nurturing, though. I think a lot of, whether it's the government or adults or just general society, see these things as a hobby. And it's something, oh, you go and have a bit of fun after school, when actually it's nurturing young people for a career.
Exactly.
And it's not just a hobby.
It's not just recreation.
Exactly. And don't get me wrong, hobbies and talents, they're great and they're wonderful and everyone should have them. And whether that's, you just want to sing but you don't want to take it any further, or act or dance. But for a lot of people, this is their only way they're going to have that nurturing environment to open doors in other areas and in future. And I think that the government at least are starving that, because they don't see it as important.
It's terrible, because if a child doesn't have the opportunity to learn and grow within that field and get the support to kind of, progress, then they don't know that they could do that. They might, fall into the wrong career path and then fall into depression or, suicide if they don't feel that they are doing something meaningful with their life. So yeah, I really hope that, I don't know, I really hope that these things, these institutions won't disappear altogether, because that would be a real shame.
I think also when kids say, let's take uni, for example, and they say, oh, whether it's their parents or their peers or whoever, and they go, oh, do you know, I'm going to go and do a degree in engineering or science. There's a very different response a lot of the time. So, oh, well, that's amazing. Let me find everything I can to help you progress in that. But as soon as you say, oh, I want to do a degree in music or the arts.
Screenwriting.
Or
something like that.
People go, or how about you go do something academic first?
As a backup.
I mean, my dad, I love him to bits, but he didn't say it because he didn't believe in what I wanted to do, but he said it all. I'm nervous about you doing a creative. I mean, I did media in the end, so it was more of I guess it was part academic to do with it. But I said originally, I don't want to go to, I want to just pursue music. And he said, oh, I'm worried. Like, do we need you to go get this backup? And at the time I thought, oh, maybe, and I'm glad I did what I did. Don't get me wrong. And I was never pressured. I don't want that to be out there. I was never pressured. But I do think that there's that stigma when it comes to creative.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's almost like it's probably like a evolutionary survival thing kicking in when parents say that, because they're just thinking as, worried parents, I want my kids to have stability. And our world is very different. What we know from, our own lives and the people like our peers, you see that you can make a living out of the creative industries, but maybe a generation back, they would see it as too much of a wild card. But then obviously those words do stay with you and they do hold a certain power, and you kind of have to spend your life proving yourself that, okay, no, mum wasn't right, or dad, I know that he cared, but it wasn't the truth what he said. So
I wonder how much effort then goes into proving that than if it wasn't said or done, and then
or
you
if
just
it was encouraged.
and you actually went and did it.
Yeah.
Exactly. I wonder how much effort.
Also, like, I think there are a lot of musicians out there and a lot of actors, a lot of writers who probably are driven in some way by the spite of it all.
That's
it's like,
true.
you know what? I'm going to prove you wrong.
Yeah.
And they're just driven solely by that sort of like desire to be
Middle
like, you know what?
finger.
I'm going to show you.
Yeah.
I can do this. Yeah. It may be, there's probably, when someone tells you, it's like reverse psychology. It is quite motivating sometimes. So that's true. That's interesting.
Yeah.
You did go to uni for a year, didn't you?
How do you know that?
We do our research.
You dig.
It's scary what's out there. I did. I only went for a year. Sorry, commercial music, University of Westminster. I did have a game plan.
Is this your attempt at cheating the system in a way?
Well, I knew that, I wanted to be a singer-songwriter, but I knew nothing about the industry. There was no one in my family or anyone in my life that, close to me that could, help me get in or learn about. It was like this mystery world. I used to go on YouTube and watch interviews with like Beyonce and Jay-Z and like successful artists and just try and learn how the industry worked. So I was like, okay, I need to get an education on this. But then I also felt instinctively that I couldn't stay in the security of the education bubble for 3 years because, I could have, but I felt like I need to get out there and do it and write and perform and, get on that path. So I kind of, I said all the things I needed to say to get in for my degree. And then I left after a year when I kind of learned a bit about the overview.
I think it's so important. I think, as you said, there's not a lot when it comes to, it's one of those industries as well where it's quite elitist is probably the right word. The door's shut, and if you're not already in that door by birth or through someone else, to get that door open is bloody difficult. It's chained. It's got a key lock on it. It's not an easy. People think, oh, you just kind of wander in to the industry and you're set for life, and it's couldn't be any further from the truth, really.
Yeah, I've done a lot since I've started working for the most recent company that I've worked for, going into schools in my area and doing career talks with these kids who are taking music or taking drama and being like, this industry is intentionally opaque. They do it on purpose. Once you know what these words mean, the terminology, I do compare it, I think, to politics, and I compare it to like medicine. It's like they will just throw words at you that no one understands what that word means. Even the people who work here don't understand what that word means. They will just throw it at you to make you feel inferior. And trying to break down those barriers with these kids, because they've maybe seen, oh God, only like 1% of people from my area have ever done anything creative. And then they start like, what is music publishing? And they're like, oh my God, this is so jargon heavy. And it's like all these percentage numbers. So going into those schools and like it's really a case of having to like pow down these walls and be like, no, like that just means this. And they're like, oh, okay. It's really easy.
It's the reality of it. Like, I think it's all very well, like if you watch something or you research it, but actually coming to do it, it's like, let's take shoots.
Yeah.
It's all very well reading on the shoot. You have a stylist and you do the hair and the makeup. But when it actually comes down to the day, unless you have the opportunity to learn from someone or shadow someone or have work experience, it's something you need to experience, I think. And a lot of the time, if not, you go in and it really overwhelms you. I've been in situations where, even though I was very fortunate having some experience from my mum in the music industry, where I went in and I was like, this is not what I expected. I don't know what I'm doing. I feel uncomfortable. Maybe I shouldn't be here. And I think that then feeds into also like the mental health element of it.
I blame film and TV as well. A lot of the time.
Romanticizing it
A lot of the time when you talk to these kids and they're like, oh, so I just make a demo CD and I just send it to Warner. God. And you're like, no. I'm like, oh, but that's what so-and-so did on Killing Bono. And that's what
or like reality.
Elton John did on Rocket Man. And you're like, that's not what happens at all.
I think reality shows, like reality talent shows, are really unhealthy as well. Like the way that they, firstly, the way that they treat their artists. The majority of people that go through those shows, they're all going in there with a dream and they just get exploited. They tell their story. They're on the show to serve an entertainment purpose, and there's like no aftercare. for the people that come out the other end without the hit record, you know? And it's just, they're used and abused.
Yeah.
And the idea that you just go and audition and then you go on this massive tour and then, you know, the label, you know, only picks you up if you've sold like X millions, but then but then you're still signed to the contract and you can't do anything else if you're not one of those artists. So I think it's massively unrealistic and unhealthy as well.
It definitely chips into the whole cutthroat attitude of it as well. You're saying like this is a sort of gladiator winner takes all thing, and anyone who doesn't win the X Factor will never be a musician.
Yeah.
But we're also shown the complete opposite of what it is. We're shown from that, as you said, like you go on and they teach you and they try and have a mentor. You're almost mentored in a weird way. But you're seen on that is afterwards you get the deal, you get lots of money, you live the high life. Yep. It's all really straightforward, really simple. When are we ever shown as musicians? I mean, I certainly wasn't the reality of the hours overnight you spend in a studio, the writing, the hard graft of going on your first tour where you don't get paid anything, where you can barely afford your rent. Where are we ever shown the reality? And I think that leads to like almost really, you know, awful expectations, which then also damage your mental health, because once you're not doing it, you're like, well, I failed. Straight up failed, when actually you haven't failed. That you're actually achieving what everyone else is achieving trying to do that. It's not going to be a click your fingers and you're...
Yeah, not everyone can just walk onto the X Factor at 16 and become Harry Styles overnight.
No, exactly. Yeah, it doesn't show the writing process, the time it takes to find a sound, and to, you know, the amount of songs that go into making an album as well. It's a lot of work, and the social skills you need to like meet different people and be vulnerable. Like when I write a song with someone, you have to be really vulnerable. And I remember my first writing session, it was so hard. Like I'd only known how to write alone. And then being thrown into a room with like these two other older males and like, okay, so what have you got? It's like, I was mute.
Wow.
I couldn't, it took me a while to kind of learn how to share my creative process. And then it's finding the right people. Are they trustworthy? Are you on the same page? It's just so many different things that go into making music that is not spoken about.
Yeah, it makes you think whether you want to, I think, I go back. I think writing, I agree, writing sessions with producers or anyone else, you know, they can be really uncomfortable. And then you think, is this what it like? It's a learning thing. And
it's
I think
a learning curve, it's trial and error, it's finding the right people. I always kind of approach it with the mentality of you kind of have to kiss a lot of frogs, which is maybe really old fashioned and really unhealthy. I don't know, where does that idea come from, that you have to kiss a lot of frogs to, you know, find the prince?
I think it comes down to that
thing, isn't it?
That work ethic that you, once again in our industry, you have to get work experience for free. Well, work for free, I think is a lot of that. It comes down to that, and it's exploited from the industry, sadly. It sounds like I don't love the industry. I do love the industry, but there are some.
We're having a rough patch.
We're having a rough patch, and COVID's definitely not helped with that. So what's coming up? What have you got coming up?
So on a positive note, not that it's not positive to talk about the realities of life, but I'm working on an album, and it is kind of, well, I thought it was almost done, but actually during COVID, I kind of went back to the drawing board a bit. So I'm kind of like midway through that, and hoping for sometime next year, the end of next year, for that to happen. But, you know, with these things, we'll see what's going on in the world. But just writing, really. Writing. Enjoying that. I think actually not being able to be in so many sessions was hard in the beginning, but now it's forced me to learn new things, and it's forced me to be way more proactive and take a lot more control, which I'm enjoying. So I'm just in the creative cocoon hub stage of things. And then, you know, I had a real love-hate relationship with social media for the longest time. I really just wanted to ignore it. And I had this fantasy that I wanted to be like, an artist in the 70s, you know, just make my music, sing my songs. But during this time, I've needed to kind of be more active on there. And I've started to enjoy it, which is really nice, because I thought it was something I'd just have to like grin and bear for the rest of my life. But so just finding new ways to get creative with social media and like connecting with people and sharing music on there and having conversations. So I'm kind of like a digital social media artist at the moment until further notice. Yeah.
I love it. What are you looking forward to most? Dare we jinx COVID, and if it's going to ruin any more things, which I'm sure it will for a while, but what are you looking forward to most? If we could just, if you said like in 3 months it's all going to settle.
That's optimistic.
That's a very optimistic. I don't want to be a Debbie Downer and say 2 years, but when you can, what are you looking to do? Whether it's music or it could be anything else, really.
Well, musically, I mean, definitely playing a show, having an audience, talking to an audience, giving something like with my energy, with my actual person to people in the room and seeing people. And then in life, I'm looking forward to I really want to go to a festival and just have fun and just roll around in the grass and
mud and grass with wellies
listen
on.
to music. Yeah, I'm just miss kind of freely going out for dinners and stuff, parties with friends, random nights out. I miss all that stuff.
That's what hit me the most, I think, because it happened to me yesterday.
Yeah.
And it's happened to me all through over the summer, especially, where I've pinged all these things in my calendar, and then when lockdown happened, I didn't go through and delete them all. So I get an alert being like, today, leave for Glastonbury. And I'm like, no. It's like, today you're meant to be seeing this guy at this arena. I'm like, no. And I didn't delete them. And it's like every 3 days I get an alert being like, yeah, that's not happening.
In my alternate life, I would have been.
Yeah, I've been saying that so often. It's like, if COVID hadn't happened, I'd be in a field with a cider right now, having the time of my life. And then
it's just normal things.
In my bedroom alone.
I even with Christmas coming up, I'm not much of a big party animal when it comes to going out and getting absolutely bladdered. But every year I do a Christmas dinner for friends, and I realised I can't do that at all. Not even, especially now the tiers are up, because you can't even mix with anyone outside your household. So it's I mean, we are socially distanced now, but looks like I'm doing that for one, which is depressing.
It's gonna
maybe
be,
2.
It's going to be a tough Christmas this year.
It is.
I think, I actually always get a bit sad at Christmas anyway, because I feel I'm coming from a very small family of just me and my mum. I always used to compare myself to every other family, doing the big family dinner and stuff. So it was always kind of a blue period. But I think for a lot of people, not being able to see family, not being able to have Christmas parties with friends, just not being able to travel really as well, it's going to be tough.
Would you consider doing... I know, obviously, depending once again on COVID. I mean, we should just put this in the bio, that whole phrase. But obviously, there are gigs happening starting to happen where they're sit down gigs. So everyone's eating or whatever.
Yeah.
And would you ever consider doing one of those?
Yes, I would. I'm hoping to do that in the new year.
Amazing.
I think, luckily my music, I can strip it down very easily to acoustic sets. I've done a lot of that. So I think it would work. I saw some really sad pictures of socially distanced gigs, which did put me off in the beginning, but I asked a few people what their experience had been, and it was all positive. I think people just really appreciate being able to go out and do it and hear live stuff.
It's also I love an intimate gig. Don't get me wrong, I love big stadiums and dancing and all that, but I love an intimate gig. Some of my fondest memories with watching bands are from really small venues. Obviously, that's slightly different now, but I'd imagine I'd really enjoy that.
I think I had the same experience as you when you saw those initial pictures of just the sort of cattle pens with 2 chairs in them.
Oh yeah, I'm not talking about those.
And you'd be like,
screw that.
And you'd be like, oh my God. I was like, why would anyone want to go and do that? But then a few of my friends went up north when they went to see Sam Fender in Newcastle, and they were like, oh, no, it was just great hearing music again.
Oh,
was that intimacy?
That's why people are doing it. And then I went to one in a pub near mine, and it was...
Oh, you've been to one?
I went to one, and it was... They did it outside. They managed to get a stage outside. There was so many technical faults where I kept... Because the guys were like, oh, we've never done a gig before. And then there was the guys in the band that I went to school with, and they just kept looking at me like, do you know what this is? And I was like... I just came here to sit and watch. But then just seeing you'd have like 2 people on a bench here, 2 people on a chair there, and you were all like spaced out. And it was just so nice being like around live music again. I was like, I'm going to take it however I could get it.
I think that's just what we're going to do.
Beautiful. That's really beautiful. It's encouraging.
Yeah. I drove past the Jazz Cafe in Camden the other day, and they had an event. When I was waiting, I could see they were all like, a few people going in for an event. And I just thought, oh my God, I'm going to have to look into this, because I actually think I'd quite enjoy it. Obviously, it's not the ideal for people, and especially when it comes to like income and finances and all that. But I think we haven't got much choice. We've got to deal with what we have at the moment,
we have to cherish what we can do.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely. I think so. Finally, we always say to people if they have any tips or tricks when it comes to looking after either their mental health, or perhaps they think would be beneficial to listeners.
Yeah, definitely. I'm all about like getting the toolbox of things that works for you, because all of our brains are different. So over the years, I've tried this and tried that, and my kind of thing that I keep talking about right now is breath work.
Yeah.
I discovered the Iceman, the Wim Hof guy, who's amazing. He's got an incredible interview on the Joe Rogan podcast, which is where I heard about him. And he's got this 10-minute breathing exercise, and it's like you control your breath, and he does like breath holds. But honestly, every time I do that, if I'm having like an anxious moment, which I do get, I do that for 10 minutes and it kind of resets me. So I'd really recommend like trying breath work exercises.
Well, the good news is we're going to plug our own. We, in between, people will be able to see we are doing about a 10-minute grounding exercise podcast in between each podcast we do. So a lot of it's based on that, and I'm a big fan of not listening necessarily to hours, because it's me talking and I don't know how I feel about that, but I'm a big fan of 5, 7, 8 or whatever works for you, especially grounding exercises and stuff and breathing exercises. I think they're really helpful, but as you say, everything is different.
Exactly.
Yeah, I saw on Instagram as well you were doing crystal singing bowls.
Yes. Oh, that's another one.
Yeah.
Can I talk
amazing.
about that? I feel like an absolute nutter, and my boyfriend's like, "What are you doing?" And my neighbours downstairs are like, "Oh my God, who is this?" But I put on YouTube, which anyone can access, the crystal singing bowls, and I hum to them like
oh my God, amazing.
So, and it just honestly like. It does. I mean, I've read there's papers that say these crystal singing bowls like are anti-anxiety and good for your immune system. It does something. The frequencies in there, but if you like just listen to it and breathe, it does something healing. But if you sing to them, just a random humming noise, it transforms you. So I'd recommend that as well.
Oh, amazing.
How did you find out about that?
It was in lockdown, and I was like, oh my God, I don't know. I think I went into a YouTube hole. And then just one thing led to, I think I was looking at breath work and like
it leads on
binaural beats and stuff like that. And then I came across it and I was like, oh my God, that feels incredible.
That's the joy of YouTube though, isn't it? 1 minute you're listening to like a breath video, and the next you're watching someone doing like chakra and getting hit with palm leaves, and it's and you're finding out all these
yoga, doing weird,
and you're finding out all these normal things. Yes. Amazing. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Oh, thanks for having me. Lovely to talk to you guys.
Thank you so much to Jones for joining us this week. We learned so much about crystal bowl singing after the interview ended that we may be bringing her back to talk us through an exercise later on. If you want to give her a follow, all the social links are in the episode description, as well as the link to her new single. You can find all our social links there too, which, if you head on over to now, you'll be able to see the cover stars for issue 2 of our magazine. Yes, we have a magazine. We have our fingers in way too many pies. But thank you so much for joining us. And until next week, don't forget to keep your head above the clouds. Bye.